Okay, so it looks like most new films are canceled for the foreseeable future, but thankfully streaming exists, so here's what I've been watching lately while locked in my house. I watched a film that came out a little earlier this year called Swallow that was written and directed by Carlo Mirabella Davis, and it was pretty good. Haley Bennett gives a really good performance as this woman who is trapped in a stable yet shallow marriage with a very wealthy man from a very wealthy family. In her desperation to exercise some sort of control over her life, she develops an eating disorder known as pica, in which she frequently swallows small objects from around her house. I don't think that I'm alone in the sense that this is the type of stuff that makes my skin crawl the most. I could watch people get their heads blown off in films all day long. Your run-of-the-mill theatrical blood and gore doesn't really bother me at all anymore, but watching this lady just swallow a thumbtack is absolutely unbearable. I mean, you guys see the type of shit that I recommend on this channel. You know, if I'm like, this might be a little hard to watch, it might be a little hard to watch. This is a competent film and it looks great, and aside from a couple nitpicks about the story that didn't really work for me, I still totally recommend it. Then I watched a documentary called Sour Grapes, which was surprisingly engaging. It came out in 2016 and it's about counterfeit wine. I know it sounds boring, but it's actually really interesting. So basically, this group of really rich people like to go to wine auctions and drop ungodly amounts of money on rare wines. I mean, I spent $12 on a top I ordered a month ago that never came, and I will never stop being upset about that $12. And these people are dropping like $50K on some wine, and it's just like a hobby, and it's so crazy. Anyway, at some point, people start finding out that they have been sold fakes. Somebody has been switching labels and auctioning off counterfeit wine and making a fortune off of it. So the documentary chronicles how they found out who was doing this and how they were doing it. And look, you might be thinking, why would I care about a rich person buying fake wine by accident? You won't, and I don't either. But there is one guy who you will be rooting for, and it's the guy who actually makes the real version of the wine that's being counterfeited. He has every right to be upset because he's just like, can you please stop making fake versions of my life's work? It's just so rude. I was thoroughly entertained by this, if you couldn't already tell. And you don't have to be a wine nerd to enjoy it either. I like wine, but I am nowhere near these people's level of zealotry. I would most likely get kicked out of one of these wine parties the second someone asked me anything. They'd be like, oh, I taste notes of oak and honeysuckle, how about you? And I'd just be like, I don't know. I think it tastes like a grape.
What?
At long last, I finally got to see the latest Trey Edward Schultz film, Waves, and oh my god, it's so good. I really like his other two films, Krisha and It Comes at Night, so I was looking forward to seeing this film for a while, and as usual, I am just so impressed with this guy. Waves is a very interesting take on the family drama / coming of age story. I definitely don't want to spoil anything because the way the story progresses is very intense and surprising, but I will say that you kind of get two films in one here. The main character of this story are siblings who are both in high school, and the first half of the film is focused on the brother while the second half is focused on the sister. It does a really good job of highlighting how two people who have lived pretty much the same life can end up coping with things very differently based on their personality. Unlike a lot of films with teenage protagonists, it really captured what it's like to be in high school. So often filmmakers, regardless of how removed they are from being in their teens, can just get it so wrong when it comes to portraying children or young adults, but Waves was just spot on. There were so many beautifully shot sequences of these kids just driving around and being young that really took my old ass back. But if you're familiar with Schultz's other films, then you already know that he kind of likes to tell stories that are intensely tragic and emotional, so just make sure you're prepared for that before you watch this. Like I said before, I don't want to spoil anything, so I can't really talk about its plot all too much without doing that, but trust me when I say this film is truly great. Had I had access to this film prior to making my top 10 films of 2019 video, this definitely would have been on there because it's just excellent in every way, and I hope more people are able to see it now that it's available to stream. I was able to watch another film that was released this year called The Assistant, written and directed by Kitty Green. I liked this film, but you might not. Let me explain. So, The Assistant follows a young woman named Jane over the course of one particularly stressful day at work. Jane is an executive assistant at a production company, so she's the first to arrive and the last to leave every day. We watch her as she goes about her workday making calls and tidying up her office while becoming aware of some very insidious behavior going on in her workplace. This film's primary objective is realism. Not much happens in the way of a narrative that results in some big catharsis, but it still worked for me because because that wasn't what this film was trying to do. It's very much just a peek into someone's life and what would realistically happen in a situation like this. If you aren't the type of person who likes it when a movie spends a lot of time with the more mundane aspects of a character's life, I totally get that, and this film might not be for you at all. But I personally really liked how much restraint this film had, and I'm looking forward to seeing more from Kitty Green in the future. Okay, I know I'm super late to this, but I finally saw Little Women, and I feel so bad for not watching it sooner because I loved it. Greta Gerwig has more than proven herself to be such a talented filmmaker. I really enjoyed Lady Bird when it came out, and I like Little Women just as much, if not more. I've actually never read this book, so I can't speak to how well the story was adapted from the source material, but I thoroughly enjoyed it just going in cold. I already thought it was weird that this was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Picture, but not Best Director, and now after seeing it, I'm just baffled. This film is as well directed as it is well written, so I really don't understand, but whatever. The acting is great. I really loved how natural the dynamic between the sisters was, and oh my god, Florence Pugh is so good in this. Just between that and Midsummer, she just absolutely killed it last year. Overall, this is a lovely film. 17-year-old me and 31-year-old me agree. Chef's kiss. And speaking of things I recommend, here's something I don't recommend. I watched Brahms the Boy too, and it's awful. I watched The Boy a few years ago and couldn't bring myself to make a video about it because I just didn't have the strength. I'm pretty sure everyone knows about the twist already, but spoiler warning just in case for both these films because whatever. So in the first one, this lady takes a nanny job that turns out to be not for a real boy, but a fake boy, because apparently this old couple's real son died, so they have a doll instead now. The old couple is like, okay, here are the rules you have to follow for our son Brahms, who's definitely this doll and not a grown man living in the walls. We're going on vacation now so we can kill ourselves. I hate this movie. Anyway, the whole rest of the film consists of the doll doing a bunch of spooky things that the nanny can't explain, so she starts to kind of believe that he's a magical ghost boy, but oh no, he was just a grown man living in the walls. The nanny's crazy ex-boyfriend smashes the doll, so the real Brahms gets mad and comes out of the walls and kills the ex-boyfriend. And the other two main characters get chased around, and then the nanny stabs Brahms and they get away. But the last shot of the movie shows Brahms fixing the doll, and it ends. And it's bad. Brahms the Boy 2 is somehow even worse. At least the boy felt somewhat like a swing and a miss. In the sequel, they just didn't even swing. They just threw the bat on the ground and had diarrhea. So in this one, there's a family that gets violently robbed and Katie Holmes gets hit on the head. After this, her son immediately stops talking because this is a horror film and we need a mute child who draws weird pictures. So the dad is like, I know what we should do to deal with this trauma. Go on vacation. So the family rents a little house that's on the property of the mansion from the first movie. The son who doesn't talk finds the doll buried outside and immediately becomes obsessed with it because, long story short, the doll is haunted for real this time. Nothing happens in this movie, except we see the doll's head and eyes move sometimes, and Katie Holmes gets upset sometimes. A lot of jump scares. The dad from The Witch shows up at one point and I'm like, oh no, you're better than this. Don't do this. And then they smash the doll's head again at the end, but instead of triggering a grown man to Kool-Aid smash through the wall, we get to see that the doll is actually a little meat boy on the inside. He's real now, and he's been causing mischief for a long time, so forget the twist and ending and everything from the first one. We killed that guy off screen. The doll is a little meat boy ghost now. Whatever. He's gonna be a Palpatine in the next one, watch. We'll just have JJ do it, who cares? You know what? I hope they commit to the ridiculousness if they keep expanding the boy cinematic universe and just change his lore in every film. Make him a ghost pirate in the next one. Fuck it. Brahms of the Caribbean 3, Dead Boys Don't Say Anything. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you for watching. Click all this stuff if you want. Bye.